All right, everybody. Let's give one more round of applause for our speakers. I thought this was a great panel. All right, so we've got about 5 or 6 minutes for questions and answers because the next panel is actually going to be in that room. So contact Tim Benson about that. Remember, we're playing Jeopardy rules. You must ask a question, not make a statement. And I'm actually moderating the next panel, so I'm going to actually buzz out of here. But thank you all for your time.
My question is for Dr. Hutzler. Could you elaborate a bit on how you handled the backup and buffering of solar and wind? I didn't fully understand how you actually did that.
I did not go over those calculations in the presentation because they are pretty involved. If you take a look at the report, it itemizes exactly how to get there, and it does go through a couple examples, so I suggest you look at those.
Okay, I will. Thank
you. I'm not smart enough for Jeopardy, but I have never understood how people who call themselves intelligent, and you ask them, they will tell you, do not understand that we are on a planet that is rotating. Yet the entire solar, milieu is to compensate for a way to eliminate the rotation of the Earth. And let me give you use the radial stacker, telescopic radial stacker, and have it follow a parabolic curve and actually collect the solar as it moves and utilize the rotation of the Earth to collect the energy. Another possibility is in order if solar or sulfur, sulfur boils at 250 degrees and goes boils. It melts at 250 and boils at 800 degrees. Why not use that curve? And I know this is anachronistic, and use steam engines to generate the power and end the cycle.
I'll just say from my perspective, not being up to speed on the specifics of those engineering challenges, I will say that when government gets out of the way and allows markets to work, when something becomes feasible and economical, then we may see movement in that direction. There are a lot of things that are really cool that we can do, but it doesn't mean necessarily it's economical to do so. But if what you're saying is true, then I would hope and expect that there will be people who realize they can make money off doing it and will research it and look into it.
Tom Weissmuller. Jim, this is for you really. The ethanol lobby is quite powerful. It's a farm lobby. They are subsidizing ethanol. Is there a way to convert these subsidies so that they, instead of producing ethanol, can produce cornmeal, send it to India, send it to China, feed people, and get rid of the subsidies, and actually improve our gas mileage?
Yeah, Tom, you bring up a fantastic point. Not only the subsidy, well, I mean, the subsidies, of course, make it more economical to produce ethanol, but it's really the mandates of the 2007 law. And although it varies a little bit from year to year, we are devoting about 40% of our corn crop to fuel when we don't need to. And you bring up a great point about feeding the rest of the world. Boy, when people talk about global warming's impact on crops, although it's been beneficial and will likely continue to be so, if you're concerned about that, then maybe we should divert some corn to food rather than fuel. Good point.
I'm wondering, only because I think that you're looking at existing technologies, and obviously respond to the gentleman that those charts could change if our technology changes or our ability to, especially storage we haven't spoken about. One thing that has struck me in our discussion of alternative energy is I actually tend to embrace the thought that many who promote alternative energy at the lower scales, that we could move away potentially from a grid system. I mean, right now, we all make our own heat at our own homes, generally speaking. And nobody thinks that that's a problem, that we need a utility to make heat and then send heat. They do that in New York City. But I think I'm wondering if you see any parts of alternative technology that you think beckon, that you think could change those, because when we're sitting in state policy discussions about this, at least I'd like to be able to point in Rhode Island. I have no choice but to try and point them in the right direction rather than lie in front of the bulldozer.
Any particular person you would like to answer that question, Brian?
I mean, obviously, you watch these technologies. I'm just wondering if you all have see anything that shows any promise, not even as alternative energy, but even say dispersed generation. That's not necessarily alternative if we do it with gas.
The argument for rooftop solar systems has been it enables people to, quote, leave the grid, unquote. They don't really leave the grid. They get subsidized to produce very expensive power, and they don't pay their share of reliability costs for when the sun isn't shining. So I'm really rather dubious, frankly, in an absence of some sort of technological breakthrough in the form of an efficient battery or radically more expensive fossil fuels, that you're ever going to see something like that. It's certainly possible conceptually, but I really rather doubt it.
Okay, this will be the last question over here because we got to move next door.
I live in the state of New York, which is ground zero for keep it in the ground philosophy, and there are people in my community that actually look forward to paying more for Priuses and for alternative energy because that's the penance for their philosophy. How do you answer those people, and you can't do it with rational thinking?
Well, sure you can. I'm always amused at the anti-fracking sentiments among the voters in Manhattan who consume cheap natural gas produced by fracking in Pennsylvania. It's quite an amusing dichotomy. If they want to impose costs on themselves, fine. They have every right to buy expensive whatever. What they propose is imposing large costs on others, and that's really rather much more dubious sort of imperative from, in my view, at a normative level.
And I would add, to the extent that when I produced the slide at the beginning of my presentation with the things that we can spend money on, including consumer goods and vacations, I don't want environmental activists telling me that I shouldn't be allowed to buy consumer goods or take vacations with my own money. So if they care to buy a Prius and spend more money than they need to on automobiles, that's fine by me.
All right. Well, that's it. Thanks a lot, everybody.